that?
Is it a computer?
It most certainly is not. It is a brain, a genius. It has a mind that can draw information from every computer containing one of my cells. Orac has access to the sum total of all the knowledge of all the known worlds.
You mean it can draw information from any other computer without a direct link?
Precisely that, yes. Now, are you going to stand there and listen to a lecture? Huh? Or might you consider it more important to try and sustain my life? Now, will you put him in there, please?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yes, careful, careful, careful. That's right. You better take that. Just a minute. You better take that.
What is it?
It's a simple on-off device that activates Orac. Use it, and Orac will advise you of every detail of the operation you intend to perform. Now, shall we go?
The other end's connected.
Do you want to give it a try?
Why not? Philo, switch to automatics. Oh, activator.
Modesty would be dishonesty.
What's wrong with being dishonest?
Is that a question?
Yes.
The question is futile. Were I to say that I'm incapable of dishonesty, how would you know if I was being dishonest or not?
A question for a question. Well, you're capable of evasion anyway.
I think I've heard enough. I don't like him. Orac, be a good junk heap. Shut up.
I agree with Villa.
Define the words, shut up.
Stop talking. Do not speak. Be silent.
That is better. Our relationship will be best served if your statements are free of ambiguity.
Let's switch him off and go back to work.
No, wait a minute. Let's find out what he is capable of. Orac, what are your limits?
They have not yet been defined. My knowledge is virtually infinite. My secondary ability is to logically process that knowledge and make accurate predictions.
Are you saying you can see into the future?
The words future, present, past are meaningless.
Define meaningless.
I have the capacity to predict events that have not yet taken place.
That is not what I asked.
In the circumstances, a question is meaningless.
Now, that's ridiculous. Give us a demonstration.
A demonstrate as a command is insufficient.
What does he mean?
He means, like Zen, that he requires specific instructions.
Instructions are not needed if commands are succinct.
You will clear the receptor circuits to receive an emergency program. Confirm when ready.
Confirm readiness. Come on, come on.
What's wrong?
You tell me.
Maybe it's been taken over too.
No, that's not likely. Orac's systems are entirely independent of all the liberators.
Now then, Orac, are you going to function or are you not?
All principal circuits are operating at full capacity and cannot receive new programs at this time.
Well, clear the circuits. This is priority.
Circuit clearance and reprogramming will take precisely 1 hour and 37.9 seconds.
That could be just a little late.
State your program requirements. They will be implemented when capacity is available.
We want total analysis of Zen's override system and erasure of that control. Eliminate any links with an external computer. Key the voice systems to respond only to the commands of Avon, myself, and Jenna. Orac, you are a genius. Next time, let us know what you're planning.
I am closing down. I have much to do. You have engaged my circuits on your petty affairs for far too long.
Thank you, Orac.
Orac? Orac? Are you in there, Orac?
Am I in where? What precisely do you imagine I am? Some sort of tame rodent in a cage?
That's precisely what I imagine you are. A rat in a box.
I see no point in continuing this conversation.
Now, don't start sulking again, or I shall switch you off and throw away the key.
Soon, that will be no longer a problem.
Eh?
Well, what do you want?
Orac? I've got a little job for you.
He wasn't very happy at being interrupted.
I'll apologize later. Orac, your information on the weapons development base is unsatisfactory.
Define unsatisfactory.
I was about to. Your strategic computations start from the premise that the base is on maximum security alert.
Computer communications traffic indicates that it is.
Not permanently.
It is not a practice drill.
So what is it?
Clearly, some occurrence which is a real or apparent threat.
Thank you, Orac. I'm sure we'd have never worked that out for ourselves.
It is therefore the case that security in the immediate future will be sensitive and alert.
A fact to be included in strategic computations. Moral?
Never argue with a computer.
Right.
What was the cause of the alert?
Obviously somebody broke in.
Or out.
Which is it, Orac?
That information is not immediately available.
Well, can you get it?
It has no bearing on the problem.
Can you get it?
Eventually,
How long is eventually?
it will require time and resources far in excess of the value of the information.
Well, get it anyway. I want the reason for that alert.
Very well. I will report in due course.
You mean that's an ocean of spit?
Oh, of course not. That was merely an analogy I was drawing.
All right, so it's digestive fluid. What does it mean?
Oh, surely that's obvious. This planet is alive.
Define alive. All planets are by some definition.
I am not referring to a complex ecosystem. I refer to a single organism, a planetary life form. Fascinating, don't you think?
I doubt if Blake does.
If it is a single organism, how does it function?
That would require study. At present, I can only conjecture.
So conjecture.
To maintain life on that scale, the organism must have achieved stasis, a perfect balance within itself. Clearly, something has upset that balance.
Blake.
No. The stimulus would be insufficient.
Well, so what then?
My conjecture would be parasites, a life form living on the organism whose population has reached to a higher level,
Well, what's that organism doing, Orac?
cleansing itself.
Killing them.
Correct. And replacing the energy thus expended by eating them.
Orac, I want to tap Central Spacecraft Registry. Can you do that?
Tap? What is that?
Obtain information from the records.
That is possible, but it will take time.
I want the histories of every Wanderer Class 1 spacecraft ever registered.
Very well. This information will be relayed as obtained through the auxiliary monitor.
Orac, are you familiar with the theory of molecular reduction?
Am I to assume that you refer to the stabilized atomic implosion?
Yes, Villa and I were just discussing it.
We were?
And I was assuring him that the whole idea is an absurd fantasy.
On the contrary, it is neither absurd nor is it a fantasy.
Are you suggesting that you know more about the subject than I do?
It is not a suggestion. It's a statement of fact.
Do you seriously expect me to believe that you could, for example, reduce your size without affecting your function?
I could.
For how long?
It would depend on the degree of reduction.
Approximately 1/8 of your current size.
2 hours, 6 minutes?
Talk's cheap.
Does that mean something?
It means he doesn't believe you, and neither, as a matter of fact, do I.
I take it you wish me to prove it.
Why not?
My preliminary examination of the defense zone indicates that it is made up of a network of satellite generators,
We could have told you that.
each of which performs a dual function, namely to indicate the approach of an intruder and then to destroy that intruder by a powerful antimatter implosion.
So it's a combined alarm system and minefield.
Correct. If I may continue.
He always makes me feel as if I should be taking
If
notes.
I may continue. The defense zone is controlled and monitored from the computer complex known as Star 1.
Ah.
A cursory examination of the relevant Star 1 systems indicates that this defense zone is one of a number of such zones located at strategic points on the rim of that section of the galaxy colonized by mankind.
Then they are expecting an invasion. A horde of hairy aliens.
There is no logical reason why aliens should be hairy.
There's no logical reason why people should be hairy. I don't like this, Jenna. We could be sitting in the front line.
I see no cause for alarm. From the design and construction patterns, it would appear that the defense zones have been built up very gradually over a long period of time. My conclusion is that they are merely precautionary, rather than a response to some specific threat.
Well, if there's no threat, why bother with precautions?
If the resources are available to eliminate even the vaguest threat, it would seem logical to do so.
I'd agree with that. What do you call a vague threat?
A contact sometime in the past. Either a communication or a physical contact.
A physical contact?
A scout ship, perhaps.
A scout ship, perhaps? Like that one down on the surface now, perhaps?
Orac, I want you to punch through a message to the strategy computer in Space Command headquarters. I want you to tell it that there's an alien battle fleet estimated at 600 ships about to enter Federation space. Give it these coordinates. Tell it that the information comes from Blake on the Liberator. Can you do that, Orac?
I would remind you that I am not a communicator.
Your carrier beam is the fastest way to contact Serverland.
That is not the purpose for which it was developed.
Do it, you useless bunch of junk. You got us into this mess. No cause for alarm, you said, or have you forgotten?
I have passed the message as you requested. The Space Command strategy computer is now registering the data.
Orac, operate teleport as instructed. Orac,
Yes,
did you hear what I said?
teleport operation is a menial task much more suited to one such as yourself.
Just do it, please, Orac.
Very well.
So, this is your magic computer. Orac, isn't it?
I assume your use of the word magic means that I am incomprehensible to you. While that may well be the case, your use of the word is inappropriate.
What?
Your use of the word magic is inappropriate. I am simply the sum of the thousands of data stores which are available to me.
Impressive.
Yes, he's very efficient.
Orac, a small problem for you. What is the possibility of a directional control fault arising on the Liberator without Zen knowing about it?
The chances are that had the game continued as it should have done, I would have won control of the galaxy on a probability of 10,450 to 1.
Orac, it was only a game.
Orac with delusions of grandeur, and Zen unable to control the ship. I'd say we've a lot of little problems on our hands.
How about testing his infallibility in the recycling machine?
I have already made perfectly clear that the ship is behaving normally. It is obeying Newton's first law of motion, and will continue to obey it. Further discussion of the subject is now closed.
Why did Orac lie when he said the Liberator was behaving normally?
I did not lie. Considering the proximity of that fascinating black hole, the ship was and is behaving normally.
Orac, what is so fascinating about this particular black hole?
All black holes are fascinating. Their gravitational pull is so massive that not even light can escape from them. A cubic inch of black hole matter can weigh 1,000,000 tons.
We know all that, and so do you. So why this particular black hole?
The absence of X-ray emissions. Normally colliding particles in the vicinity of a black hole emit X-rays.
So you decided you would like a closer look.
The absence of X-rays highlighted a gap in my knowledge of the universe which cannot be tolerated.
So without telling us, you reprogrammed the navigation computers.
I have noticed that the occupants of this spacecraft have a lamentable lack of interest in the more fascinating aspects of the universe. You must excuse me, I have many observations to make.
Why don't we switch him off and put ourselves out of our misery?
I would advise against it. Orac may be gathering information that could prove useful to us.
Useful? He's got us into this mess.
Orac, where the hell are we?
A fascinating place. Fascinating. Space outside the ship has ceased to exist. It is essential that we do nothing to contaminate this place until it has been thoroughly investigated.
If space has ceased to exist, let's see how it reacts to our neutron blasters. Dana, 2 blasts at 10% power.
Now come along, Orac. First of all, you say that this is not alive, and then you say it is more rational than you are.
Avon!
Wait!
I deny that Sopron is more rational. Reason is absolute, and rationality cannot be divided by comparatives.
Orac, you are splitting hairs. Tarrant, listen to this.
Avon, we're trying.
Just a moment, I am about to extract a momentous admission. Orac, this rock, this Sopron, does it have a greater capacity for reasoning than you do?
The difference is barely measurable.
But it is greater.
By a marginal degree, yes.
There. Now, isn't that something? Well,
Well, it's not a question.
is it working?
The tracer is between the index and second finger of your left hand.
Thank you, Orac.
Reproduction by clinician Franton's method of group cloning has resulted in highly developed psychic faculties, telepathy being the most obvious example. These faculties are, of course, limited to the young, since cloning was developed relatively recently.
We know all that.
Since I lack sensors to assess what is or is not in your mind, I cannot assess what is or is not already known to you.
Listen, Orac, what about the disease epidemic Callie's talking about?
It's a high probability. Because Auron has had a policy of neutrality and isolation, the planet has now been kept completely free of all disease for more than 3 decades.
sterile environment.
Without disease, there would be no natural resistance to infection.
Precisely.
Orac.
What is it now?
Gracious as ever. Orac, I want you to interrogate the Federation security computers and get me Servalan's present location.
I was joking, Avon.
Then I want your best strategy for reaching her.
You wish to communicate with her?
Face to face with a gun in my hand.
And a hole in your head. Have you gone completely mad?
Possibly. How long, Orac?
I will inform you when I have the necessary data.
Good.
Don't we get a say in this?
By all means, say away. Oh, Orac.
Yes?
Check on a Councillor Chescu at the same time. I want to know where he is, too. Orac, have you got it yet?
An examination of the plans contained in the main security computers indicates that there is no safe place to teleport within that defense perimeter.
Outside it, then.
To cross it undetected would be impossible.
I'll take your best option within the perimeter.
Very well. I will set the teleport coordinates. I would, however, strongly advise waiting until dusk.
Why not full dark?
Despite all efforts to eliminate this weakness, dusk and dawn remain the human being's most vulnerable times. Therefore, insofar as the security system contains human components...
All right, we get the picture.
It will be at its least efficient at these times.
You know Orac's main drawback.
He's too useful to destroy.
Irritating, isn't it?
Should learn self-defense. Orac, I want another analysis.
I have already informed you that this structure is of an unfamiliar type. My deductions are necessarily limited by the facts available and the rationality of possible theories. Wild surmise is not a part of my function.
Eh?
Be more specific, Orac.
The only deduction I have been able to make concerning this artifact is that its purpose is not only inimical, but also apparently unreasonable. It is active, although the panel of keys appears to have been pre-programmed many centuries prior to this activation. Since the origin of the device is ambiguous, it must belong to a world or even a galaxy as yet unfamiliar to the human race.
What do you mean the purpose of the artifact is unreasonable? Are you saying you do have some idea?
I am not willing to speculate on so tenuous and oblique a basis. I should, however, warn you that a slight electrical imbalance appears to be...
What did you say?
Orac, what's the matter with you?
Disconnect me.
Wait a minute, Orac.
Disconnect.
I don't believe that.
Try and convince me, will you? Please? Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Atch.
At you.
Sorry, I didn't know you had a cold.
A cold what?
No, not a cold what? Just a cold. You know, cold, chill.
I am not subject to colds and chills. Some trace deposits on my anodizers, perhaps, but I am quite capable of dealing with that myself.
Forget it. Go back to sleep.
Is this another riddle?
No.
The idiosyncratic syntax of riddles interests me. They seem to depend for their effect on solecisms and grammatical discrepancies.
Eh?
Do you have another riddle for me to analyze?
You'd only spoil it.
I thought you liked riddles.
I do when I'm allowed to tell them properly. All you're interested in is the idiotic tin tax or something.
That's very clever.
What is?
For idiosyncratic syntax, you substituted idiotic tin tax. Yes, very good.
Is it?
Another one, please.
Right. What's the best cure for water on the brain?
I don't know what is the best cure for water on the brain.
A tap on the head.
A tap on the head. Yes, I see. In this instance, the word tap has a double meaning, as in to strike something, and as a device for controlling the release of fluid from a tank or pipe. The fluid referred to is water, therefore tap on the head has two ambivalent meanings, one pertaining to the striking of the cranium.
You'll only bite my head off anyway. Orac, can you give me some advice?
Please do not waste my time with foolish generalities. I must insist you ask specific questions.
Oh, shut up, you arrogant pile of junk.
The computer control room is situated within the complex at grid 622 and the focal center precisely 7 meters west of the entrance to this room.
Bit vague, isn't it, Orac?
I said precisely.
They're smiling, Orac.
I fail to see the relevance of that observation.
Shouldn't they be tired and getting on each other's nerves?
There is a progressive reduction in their conscious attention span and a growing imbalance in the dynamic structure of the group.
Is that yes or no?
It is yes. As a result of this, the efficiency rating of the ship as a complete unit is dropping by 1.02% per work period. The error quotient bears a delayed inverse relation.
They don't write poetry like that anymore. What this electronic pain is trying to say is...
that unless we get a break, there's going to be a fatal foul.
Right.
I am now picking up a public viscast transmission.
Put it on the main screen.
I must point out that this is a gross misuse and an absurd waste of my capabilities.
Put it on the main screen.
I will do it only under protest.
You can do it any way you like, just so long as you put it on the main screen.
Are you sure you can't redesign him as something useful, like a drinks dispenser? Or an empty space? I think he'd look really good as an empty space.
I naturally took the opportunity to study all the systems on the operator. A very few, were of minor interest. I would not, however, number the teleport system amongst these.
But you do know how it worked?
Of course I know how it worked.
Well, then you will tell me now.
There seems little point in wasting time on such an explanation, since you would be incapable of understanding it.
Don't be insolent!
A statement of fact cannot be insolent. Besides, insolence implies an emotional relationship, which does not and could not exist between us.
Orac must make a refreshing change from that flight computer of yours.
Orac, in 16 minutes the space will be destroyed and you with it. Is there anything logically more important than trying to stop that happening?
Yes, the most logical course of action is to transport me to safety with all due urgency.
He's groveling.
We're not going anywhere, Orac, until you give me straight answers to 2 questions. 1, how did the Seska woman get out of here? And 2, how does that method enable us to deactivate the nuclear compression charge?
Answers. 1, the woman made her exit via the secondary hatch.
It was locked from the inside.
The hatch was unlocked and locked again from the outside by telekinesis.
Telekinesis?
The power to move objects at a distance using only the mind.
Yes, we know what it means.
And yet you fail to see it as the only logical explanation, and the means by which the manual override switch may be operated to cancel the nuclear compression charge. Now, will you kindly remove it to a place not closer than 742 meters from the launch chamber door?
Orac, telekinesis doesn't work. It's a myth. The human brain doesn't generate enough energy.
The human brain does not need to generate energy. There is adequate energy elsewhere in the body. The brain merely directs it, given the engrafted co-radiating crystal necessary to focus the beam.
That's a very clever machine.
Orac, have you been listening to all this?
With interest.
What do you think?
I think you're quite right. A degree of apprehension is not inappropriate.
He means, what do you think we should do?
I would have thought that was self-evident. You must find this cancer before he finds you.
That's a splendid theory. Have you any idea how we should set about putting it into practice?
You have a time and a place.
Domo, the 9th.
Orac?
The message is coming via a Federation class Alpha 197 computer. It appears to have been modified in rather extraordinary ways.
Spare us the technical details, just give us the message.
It offers visual contact. Do we accept?
Well, since they obviously know us, and we don't know them.
Quite. All right, Dana. Orac,
Yes, Avon?
tell me everything you know about Belkov's 197 computer.
You suggested I spared you the technical details.
Oh, don't sulk, Orac. I have a little more time now.
The modifications are very extensive. It's inaccurate to call it a 197 anymore. It's really a sort of hybrid. For example, a whole section of its memory banks are from a PPC class unit.
A Pleasure Planet computer. That means it plays games.
The total effect is a system which responds in what I can only describe as an eccentric manner.
What does that mean?
A computer must, by definition, be logical, but it can also mirror the logic of its creator.
You mean it's an extension of his mind?
No, that is not what I mean.
His personality, then?
A better definition, but still not quite accurate.
Would it know how the booby traps on the orbiter are programmed?
As yet, I don't have enough data to answer that question.
If it knew, could you extract the information from it? Come on, that's a simple enough question.
There might be problems.
Why? You have extracted information from Federation computers before now. This is just a hodgepodge of 3 or 4 of them. You have already said that it is inferior to
The
you.
difficulty is not technical. It's more one of attitude.
Ah. You mean the logic of its creator?
Exactly. Let me remind you of ancient Earth mythology. The Delphic oracle would answer questions truthfully without giving a true answer.
So what we need is not the right answer, but the right question.
How long are we going to wait for those two?
As long as it takes. If Orac is going to get any information out of that machine, this is the way he's going to do it.
Who's winning?
We've both made sacrifices.
He means that Gambit is.
A temporary advantage,
To an inferior computer?
which merely disguises my long-term strategy.
Let's forget your ego for the moment. Have you extracted any information that can be of use to us yet?
Gambit has evolved into its present form over a number of years.
Well, that's true of all computers. You adapt them, you improve them.
But these adaptations seem entirely haphazard. Sense circuits have been added merely for amusement. Others, the defense mechanisms, for instance, are surprisingly complex.
But they all perform the same function. Belkov does not trust anyone except that machine. It is his bodyguard, his companion, his playmate, his friend, Orac.
No, that implies an emotional tie, which is no part of a computer's function.
These adaptations, if they went in haphazardly, could they be removed the same way?
A lot of them have been. There are circuits in the PPC section that serve no function at all now. It seems that games are added at a whim, and when the adapter gets bored with them, taken out again.
So every function can be isolated and removed.
Exactly.
Orac, teleport.
Teleport? I am not programmed. 3 squared to the principal.
Oh, no!
I love you.
Orac!
My emotions are deeper than the seas of space. 1 times 1 is only possible in the ultra-dimensional.
Turn Orac off.
I love you. Off! We will be lovers for a little while, or maybe for a long while. Who knows?
I do.
What a thought.
You took risks with our lives.
10 billion in cash and an outside chance of killing Serverland. Would you rather I hadn't?
It was not sensible.
What's that supposed to mean?
Within the last few hours, Xerox has ceded to the Federation.
So that black gold will be of use to Serverland. The Federation doesn't know how she's got it. She's made herself a good profit.
It's worse than that, unfortunately.
Worse.
The Federation banking system will now take over that of Xerox. All banknotes drawn by the Bank of Xerox will be declared invalid within 7 days, and all private transactions will be illegal directly. The consequences of this are clear.
Yes, they're clear, all right.
A good reason.
Orac, what proof do we have that Blake is on Gouda Prime?
That is where his trail ends.
What trail? Explain.
The chain of cause and effect amounts to a trail, if you can follow it.
I can't even follow you.
Everything has an effect on everything else around it. It is not easy to trace one line through the pattern of infinity, but in this case, I have. Blake is on Gouda Prime. A formal application was laid before the High Council on Earth within the last 30 days. I can get you the exact date.
I don't wish to interrupt, Master.
Then kindly don't.
I wasn't talking to you.
You were attempting to override a superior system. Be silent.
How does it feel to be home?
I wouldn't know.
The target flyer has entered an underground silo.
Can you pinpoint it exactly?
I can do better than that.
Aren't you always?
My capacities are frequently underutilized, it's true.
Just tell us what you're offering, Orac.
When we reach the appropriate coordinates, I can simulate the necessary signals to open the silo and allow this flyer to enter.
Oh, sounds good.
No, it isn't. Sooner or later, we're going to drop into one of these holes in the ground and never come out.
Sooner or later, everyone does that, Philip.